Chapter 15. The End of the Siege. Autumn was well on now, and it was cold at night. Philo had wrapped himself in the cloak his brother had brought him, and sat close under the bushes, his arms around his knees. It was very dark. What was left of the moon would not be up till later, and the sky was cloudy, though there was light enough below in the camp to see what was going on there. It did not seem that anyone had settled down to sleep. The camp was restless and noisy. The men knew they would soon be on the move, back north to winter quarters, comfortable barracks, light duties. Some of them were already drunk, and there was a fight going on out of sight, round a bend in the cliff. Conan had brought him food and a little money. He was on duty now, and Philo might not see him again. Get away east up the valley at first light, had been his advice. Don't try it in the dark. You'll be picked up by a patrol, and they don't bother to ask questions these days. Tomorrow the camp will start to break up, and there'll be company on the road. You should manage. Conan had looked at him hard then in the fading light, seeming to try to remember how it had felt months ago when he had first seen a man tortured and learned how to stay in line and shut the hurt out of the part of your mind that was screaming to, because there was nothing else to do, and staying alive oneself. Philo's head nodded forward, and he dozed uncomfortably, but woke with his cramped fingers in knots and one foot asleep. There was a slip of moon low down at the end of the valley now, so it must be close on midnight, and the camp was much quieter. He saw lights first, then came the new noise, down by the bridge, then a horse galloped hard uphill, and more light showed outside Bassus's tent. A trumpet blew in the section of the camp belonging to the second cohort. From the racket and the shouts of the officers, they were all being turned out. Philo stood up and went a little further down the hill. There was fighting down by the bridge, but who was it? The Jews in the fort had surrendered, and the highest walls were dark and quiet. Someone had broken the agreement, if that was what you could call it. The roof of a house just inside the lower walls flared up like a huge torch in the night, lighting up a section of the town, and he understood what was happening. It was the refugees, the people in the lower town caught like corn between the millstones. The Romans had made no treaty with them, and someone had understood what might happen when the Jews were allowed to march out under their safe conduct. The legion was cross and irritable with the siege, and now there would be no glory about the taking of Machaerus, no decorations awarded for storming the walls, and no plunder. The citizens were trying to escape before the soldiers' wrath fell on them. They had only brought it down sooner. Philo watched almost detached, too far to hear more than a confused roaring, as the fires spread, and by their light the men of the second cohort picked off those of the townspeople who tried to escape, like rabbits trapped in the last of the corn. In the dark and smoke, the officers did not even try to control their men. Philo went back to the bushes and curled up again with the cloak over his head to try and shut out the flare in the sky. He wondered where Eleazar was now, if he knew what the price of his life had been for people who had never defied Rome. Had it been worth his humbling before both Jews and Romans, and what did his friends think? Did they regret their bargain? And he remembered for the first time in the last hours Hylas, who had kept faith, abandoned his own life completely and received it back in a way he could never have expected. Suddenly he wanted to be with Hylas more than anything else in the world. No one else could sort and smooth and help him arrange the turmoil in his heart and mind with the care of a mother with a sick child. Dawn was still 4 hours away. Conan, standing by the road that led down the pass to the west in the early morning light, hoped that his younger brother was well clear by now. There were fewer Jews than he had expected, 600 or 700, and they had occupied a whole legion for almost a month. Perhaps they looked fewer because they were not marching out as soldiers. There were too many wounded who needed helping, and Bassus would allow them no wagons. It was as if he did not want them to get too long a start. The silent, ragged men passed, mostly bearded, some gray-headed, and a few without a bandage somewhere. The heavy, hopeless set of their faces was something he had never seen before, not on so many men together, not at Jerusalem. But then he had not seen so many who had escaped from the siege of Jerusalem alive. Even though he had seen Nicanor the evening before, he wondered if he would recognize him again. But he was there, one of the last, helping to carry a stretcher out through the fire-blackened gate, down a road still littered with the debris of the night's fighting. The last of the bodies had only been rolled out of the way into the deep ditch on the fortress side. He was helping to carry Eleazar. Perhaps they had waited till last, because nearly to the end there must have been some who refused to leave the citadel. High above sounded the hunting yells of a sentry who were searching the walls and barracks, and it seemed as if there was some quarry to chase. Eleazar lay on his belly, his face hidden in his arms. Nothing showed from under the tightly wrapped cloak, with darker patches of blood on it, except the untidy dark hair and one bare arm, the hand clutching at the side of the stretcher. Conan knew that his brother had not seen him the day before. Nicanor could not even have known that he was there at Machaerus. He had never asked the name of Conan's company, and yet as Nicanor looked up from the burden he was carrying, their eyes met. One of Nicanor's hands jerked away from the pole and reached towards Cannon. The litter lurched, and the man on it twisted in pain. Then they were past, and Nicanor had his head down, looking where he put his feet. His brother saw him bend down to whisper something in the hurt man's ear, and then they were out of sight, round the curve of the road, and the crowd was still beginning to break up. Conan still stood staring after Nicanor. There had been only one moment when they had looked at each other. He did not even know if his own hand had moved to grasp his brother's, only that they had not touched. What had there been in Nicanor's eyes? Recognition, pain, and something else very familiar, if only he could think what it was. Quintus put a hand on his shoulder to turn him away. That was him? Yes, the young one on this side. He turned to look at his friend. Did I give myself away? No, I don't think so. Who would have been looking at you, even if you did go chalk white? It was something in his eyes. I've got it now. It was the look he used to have when you saw him again for the first time after a row. He didn't know how to put things right, but it was his way of showing he wanted to. His voice dropped, and he turned away. It's so long since I saw him look like that. Well, he's alive, and he didn't look as if he'd been hurt. He's strong enough to run if Bassus changes his mind and goes after them. You saw him. He won't run away. Not while Eleazar is alive, and if he dies, I suppose he'll want to revenge him. His friend led him back up the hill. There did not seem anything else he could say. There was no way for this not to hurt, but like a wound, it would heal over. Now Nicanor was so close that Conan could still have run after him, could still have called and heard his voice. On the road north, as the nearness went, it would be easier. Then Conan stopped and looked back. At least he's found someone he really minds about. He never did that in Philadelphia. There was father, of course, but no one who really reached him. All those years we lived together and played as children, and I still didn't know him. I think Eleazar probably did. Quintus doubled over suddenly, his hands to his stomach. Hey, what's this? Asked Conan, looking at his friend properly for the first time that day. He looked gray and pinched. Nothing much. Only a gripe of some sort. I probably caught it from old Plancus. Come on back here. Let me give you a hand. I'll report you sick later. But before they reached the tent, he heard his own name called. Quintus gave him a weak grin and stumbled off toward the latrine, and Conan went back to where his decurion was standing with Marius Galenus. This he had half expected. He snapped to attention, hoping he was reasonably tidy, and fixed his eyes on the left buckle of the tribune's embossed breastplate. Is this the man? The decurion asked. Yes, I think so. The tribune's cane was slapping irritably against his thigh. I imagine you know what I want? No, sir. Is my brother ill, sir? Said Conan, staring straight ahead. No, Conan, son of Apollodorus, your brother is not ill. He seems to have run away. Let me look when I speak to you. Conan raised his eyes to the dark and angry face. He has not, I suppose, come to you. I haven't seen him, sir. I heard there was a boy in the camp yesterday, but I told Philo never to come here, so I didn't think it could be him. Better to cover himself in case someone except Quintus had seen his brother. At least they could not question his friend in the latrines. Where's his tent? Galenus barked at the decurion. The officer led the way, the other men of the company watching in surprise as the tribune inspected the auxiliary quarters. But there was no trace that Philo had even been there. Conan had seen to that. Galenus came out hot and very red in the face. Very well. I suppose he had more sense than to get you into trouble too, but I expect to hear it if you have any word of him. Conan was still standing to attention, his face blank. He could see that the tribune did not believe him, but with the camp about to break up, what could he do? The decurion gave him a funny look as he escorted the senior officer out of the lines. Conan went into the tent, dropped down on his bedroll, and mopped his brow. The sweat had nearly given him away. He was not practiced in barefaced lying, but there had been nothing else he could do. After a while, he realized that Quintus had not come back and went to look for him. Higher up the slope, there was a place where the road was clear both ways. Down in the valley, dark figures moved irregularly along a way off of the last of the Jews. Up, To the east there was movement too, patrols going, and some of the hangers-on who gather at any camp, making their way home, now there was no more pickings. He wondered how far Philo had got. Philo had been out of sight of Macaris for the last hour. He had rounded the turn from which he had first seen the citadel months before, without a backward glance, keeping his head down. Then he caught up with a merchant going up the desert road, his wagon almost empty. He had sold the last of his figs and wine, and there had been little plunder to buy in the poverty-stricken town. Philo trudged behind in the dust, trying to look as if he belonged when a mounted guard clattered past. But Galenus would not send far for him. He would be busy already with the ritual of striking camp and moving north, the easier way to Jericho and Galilee. He was not thinking much about anything. It would have been good to see Conan again, but he knew it would not have been safe. Philo remembered what his father had told him about his many long marches, when he had asked what one thought about and been surprised to be told nothing. Going uphill took all his energy, trying to keep some sort of rhythm and to ignore his empty stomach and to dry mouth. 100 paces at a time, to the next bend, then to the one after. He tried to remember what the road ahead was like, but the last time he had seen it from the back of a wagon, and it had looked different. It was a long way to Philadelphia, and he did not know what he would do when he got there, only that he must talk to Hylas.